Mischief! Well, hello there. Hello. Good evening. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Seven Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me today, of course, is the one and only, the Mad Doctor of Valhalla, Adega Outlaw. Good evening, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. And all that talk of pizza the other day, I decided I was going to make one. I made the dough yesterday, put it in the fridge so all the yeast would pack in, and the crust was awesome. And I made a Mexican one for the first time. I got chorizo and onions and some ancho chili flakes and put it out on there and lots of mozzarella. I tell you what, it's probably the second best pizza I've ever had, and I made it, and I was so happy.
Listen,
but yeah, it's all your fault.
Dave Bob thinks I blew out my voice box. It's possible.
It was kind of
day.
sputtering.
It's been kind of a crazy day today. So, yeah. Good evening. Good evening, Dave Bob. Good evening, Grim. Grim, first one through the door. Good evening, Grim. How are you doing? Chris Verge of the Wrench of Wrenches is here. Good evening, Chris. Dave Bob, my brother from another mother. Good evening, Dave Bob. How are you? Brightest Day, audiobooks and science fiction is here. Good evening, Brightest Day. Penny!
Hey, lantern.
Good evening, Penny. It's good to see you here. Arwen Avalon is here, and she says, hold on. Where is it? There it is. Hey, y'all. She's got the vapors out. She's got that pan out. Ooh, keep it cool.
It's too hot. Got to keep the whiff of the cheap wine away from the nose.
It's too hot. Oh, my God. Moni G is here. Good evening, Moni G. How are you doing? Penny says cauliflower pizza. Oh, no, not the cauliflower.
I haven't had one of those yet.
Not the cauliflower.
But my crust was awesome. I have to flat out say it.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Pizza. Everybody loves pizza. Who doesn't love pizza? I mean, one human being on this planet that doesn't love pizza. Did Loki go watch?
Be considered human then if that they didn't like it. It removes them from the category of human.
Indiana Jones and the diaper of incontinence.
I've heard that one.
That's more cheap wine for me, Adega.
It's all yours. I don't drink, so have at it.
Holy
How
crap,
are you doing?
No.
How's the movie going?
It's been a effing crazy day. So I had to deal with Orkin. I had to deal with a whole bunch of deliveries today. You saw one of those.
Yes.
So let me
all hail the beauty of the sword.
Let me pull this up real quick because I was like, yeah, okay, this is going up on my wall. What better thing to hang up on your wall than one of these? Where is it? There it is. And there you go.
The King of Rohan.
That's right. For Wrath, for Ruin, and the Red Dawn. I was like, holy shitballs. That's going up on my wall.
There's my tweet next to it with SpongeBob.
And it's just
behold the glory.
It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Did they sharpen it?
Yeah, it's sharp. You can tell. You can see on the edge right there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's sharp. So I just hope I'm not trying to hang it and end up cutting my finger off.
Where it falls off the mountain and stabs into the floor. Boom.
I knew if I got another one, it had to be Theoden's. So he's my second favorite character. So there's Gandalf. Gandalf, so many, everybody loves Gandalf.
I told you my next collectible is going to be a Chris knife. Especially now that the second trailer dropped. Oh.
Yes. Yes. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. Long live the fighters. The end of that, man. I want to see it now. I don't want to wait till November. Loki wants to see it now. It was October, yes. 2 years ago? 2 years ago, October is when that movie came out.
Something like that.
Something like that 3 years ago. I don't know.
No,
Whatever
it wasn't
was.
3 years ago. It was under 2 years.
Because
Somewhat
me and
close.
Mike saw it in October in IMAX.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's gonna be nuts. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm dragging Eris to the theaters. She didn't go see it in IMAX last time. So I've gotta take her to see it. Okay. And for anybody who saw it in IMAX, a little over 30% of the movie was filmed with IMAX. The rest of the movie was filmed with like normal whatever.
Yes.
This one is 100% IMAX.
100%.
It's just gonna look evil. It'll look crazy. I can't wait. I absolutely cannot.
Awesome.
What kind of mischief are we getting into tonight, my friend?
I am doing number 7 kind of mischief. I'm not doing the other 6. Number 7 is the one I saved for something good and uplifting. The other ones are all the bizarre and the weird that make you lose your sleep. I told you I was going to do something on the good side, and I had a few options, and something came up recently, and I want to read it to you because when we're done, and if you're curious, there actually is a free movie on YouTube where you can watch it. This is true. None of this is embellishment. None of this is lies. This is a true story. Some of you may have known it. I vaguely remembered it until it came back up. It was something that happened in the mid 80s, and it was astonishing. Of course, it's a good story in some regards and a bad story in other regards. And of course, the news, bad news sells. They don't tell you the good things. Well, I'm going to tell you the full story by their words. For those of you who wanted to know, this is, if you want to look up the movie, it's called The Cokeville Miracle. Have you heard of that, Loki?
No, I haven't.
All right. This was quite traumatic for some people, but the outcome and how things came about was just definitely a miracle. I'm going to put my glasses on so I could read this without stumbling too much because I stumble a lot. So here we go. On May 16th, 1986, an elementary school in a tiny town of Cokeville, Wyoming, was held hostage by a married couple with a bomb. The miraculous events that followed transformed the lives of hundreds of people, including many who witnessed angels or received heavenly help from deceased ancestors. Now, this is all documented truth. Here we go. At approximately 1:30 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, David Young and his wife Doris quietly and methodically took control of Cookeville Elementary. Wielding a homemade bomb and several guns, the Youngs took staff members hostage as they made their way to the first grade classroom. Students and teachers throughout the school were unknowingly drawn into the crisis when Doris went from room to room, instructing them to gather into classroom number 4. In quotes, "I felt immediately uncomfortable," recalls Amy Bagasso Williams, who was in the 5th grade. "There was nothing extraordinary about her, just something weird." With no reason to question Doris, Williams's class made its way down the eerily silent hallway and into the 30 by 32 foot room where the rest of the school was being held. 154 people in all. Inside stood David Young, a string detonator around his wrist, and a homemade bomb by his side. Young, a former Cookeville town marshal fired for misconduct years earlier, had returned to start a revolution and create a brave new world where he would be their leader, and he demanded a ransom of $2 million per child. As he read his nonsensical manifesto, 0 equals infinity, children began to cry, including Williams. In quotes, "I began to wonder, What happens if I die today? I don't know where I will go. Will I see my family again? I was really scared for the unknown. Most of the kids in my class were LDS, but I wasn't, Williams says. I was a boat on an ocean without a sail. There wasn't any anchor to tell me what life was about. Soon, gasoline fumes from the bomb filled the hot, crowded room, making the students and teachers sick and convincing Young to allow some windows to be opened. He also allowed teachers to keep their classes together to help them stay calm. The hours ticked by as teachers read stories and students colored pictures and played with Legos. Some also gathered together in groups to pray. Cameron Wixom, a sixth grader, prayed with about a dozen of her fellow students. Kneeling, we bowed our heads and folded our arms. The feeling after the prayer was one of total confidence that we had just placed our lives in the hands of our loving Heavenly Father, he recalls. It was like our part was completely done, and it was just a matter of time. Williams recalls a kindergarten teacher inviting her to join the teacher and some other students in prayer, an unfamiliar concept for the fifth grader. I told her I don't know how to pray, she shares. The teacher said, you don't have to know. So I crawled over and folded my arms and bowed my head. I don't remember what much was said, but I remember suddenly feeling like a warm blanket was around my shoulders, this incredible amount of comfort and joy that I cannot explain. I knew in my heart that I would be okay no matter what had happened. Another fifth grader, Lori Nate Conger, also prayed with some of her fellow classmates. I remember thinking, David Young can control a lot of things, but he can't keep us from praying. That's one thing that he cannot do, she says. Young grew increasingly agitated as the afternoon wore on. In an effort to keep the children away from him, teachers used masking tape to create a magic square around the bomb and then instructed the children to stay outside of it. Eventually, Young stepped away to the restroom, leaving the bomb detonator tied to Doris's wrists. While he was gone, the unthinkable happened. Doris accidentally jerked the string and the bomb exploded. It was an explosion that I can't explain, in quotes, a total instant black, the kind of black that you can't see anything, remembers Katie William Payne, who was a first grade student at the time. I felt a compression and heat like nothing I'd ever experienced. I heard teachers screaming for everyone to get down. I looked in the center of the room and all I could see was fire. There were flames all over the room and children screaming, just pandemonium, recalls Carol Peterson, a second grade teacher at the time. Another teacher was trying to help me escape. I said, I don't know where my children are. I can't leave. But he yelled, get out, get out. Children and teachers escaped through windows and the classroom door, Williams recalls. When I got to the hallway, I felt a tickling sensation on my shoulder and ear. I took a few steps and started feeling heat on my skin. I realized I was on fire. She dropped to the floor and started rolling to put out the flames. Soon, two teachers ran to her aid and slapped the flames out with their bare hands. Then they picked me up, in quotes again, and told me to run, she says. As the children escaped, David Young began firing a gun inside the smoke-filled classroom. Outside, the music teacher, John Miller, lay on the ground. His shirt was soaked in dark red blood. None of the children were hit, but Miller was shot in the back as he helped others escape from the burning school. He would recover from his wounds. Frantic parents gathered behind police barricades, cried out for the children as the police officers ran towards the school. Ambulances, fire trucks, and news cameras lined the streets. In quotes, I saw bodies all over the lawn, and I didn't know if they were dead or alive, recalls Conger. Quotes, everyone was just so black that you couldn't recognize anyone. Some kids were badly burned with skin hanging off their arms and necks. I didn't even know where to go or what to do, Conger continues. I found my older brother pretty quickly, and we just started walking towards our home. Then I saw my mom running down the street. I'll never forget the reunion when she ran towards us and wrapped her arms around me. For the first time, I remember thinking, I'm safe. It's something I will never forget. All right, now here gets into the fun stuff. Despite the explosion, all students and staff made it out alive. Only David Young and his wife perished. David, upon finding Doris engulfed in flames after the explosion, shot her before taking his own life. Ron Hartley, lead investigator for the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, had 4 children who survived the bombing. When he arrived at the scene, he was immediately told that the physical evidence didn't add up. I met the bomb tech right there at the door, and he said, Hartley, what you have here is a miracle. That bomb should have leveled the wing of the school, but it looks like the bomb blast went straight up. I don't know why. I can't explain it. In the days after the bombing, more astonishing evidence came to light. Investigators discovered that wires to 3 of the bomb's 5 blast caps had been mysteriously cut, preventing detonation. Furthermore, the explosive powder that should have lit the air on fire had been miraculously hindered from its deadly purpose, thanks to leaking gasoline, and though the walls were packed with shrapnel. Sorry, my eyes are getting tired. No one was hit by any of it. Everybody kept saying, isn't this a miracle? But I took it as luck, says Hartley. His perspective changed dramatically a couple of weeks later, however, when his 6-year-old son confronted a psychologist that he had seen angels on the day of the bombing. In quotes, I came home with the intent to factually prove to him that he couldn't have seen angels, Hartley recalls. I asked him who he saw, and he said, I don't know. She didn't tell me her name, but I think it was Grandma Meister. Meister. This was exactly what I was looking for. I told him it wasn't Grandma Meister because she's alive and living in Paindale. When the young boy insisted that his story was true, that's when Hartley asked his wife to get the family photo album. We put it on the table right in front of him, and I started flipping through the pages. I flipped to one page when suddenly he put his hand on the photo and just beamed, Hartley shares. When you do interrogations in law enforcement, you watch for body language. You can tell through physical reactions when someone is lying and when someone's not. He continues, when my son saw the picture, he just brightened up and said, that's her. That's my angel. And it wasn't Grandma Meister. It was Grandma Elliott. How do you argue that? She had been dead for 3 or 4 years. Hartley's son told him there were angels for everyone in the room that day. And just prior to the detonation, the angels joined hands around the bomb and went up through the ceiling with the explosion. When he said that, it lined up with the physical evidence that, in addition to the fact that he picked out Grandma Elliott, his evidence I cannot deny. You recall the explosion went straight through the roof. Other children also gave accounts of heavily intervention, and in the months after the bombing, more of them were able to identify ancestors who helped keep them safe on the day of the crisis. In quotes, as I sat coloring, I looked up and saw a woman dressed in a long white dress. She had short, dark brown hair, Payne recalls. She said to me, Katie, I love you very much. You need to listen to your brother and remember that I will always love you. I remember just nodding my head. I looked down for a second, and when I looked back up, she was gone. Soon after that, my brother came over and told me we were going to sit by the window. I followed him and sat down, and he then went and got my sister Rachel. He told us he had to tell his friends he was going to sit with us, and he would be right back. He walked across the room, and the bomb detonated. 8 months later, Payne learned whom the woman in white was when her mother pulled out an old locket. I kept telling my parents about the lady who had talked to me and that I didn't know who she was, she recalls. But I knew the instant my mom opened up a locket that it was her. My mom then told us that she was her mom, our grandmom, who had died when she was only 15 years old. That's their mom's mom. She was 15 when she had died. I think I read that little off. Sorry. Jenny Sorensen Johnson, a first grade survivor, had a similar experience. I had a teacher help me out of a burning classroom that I did not know, she says. I didn't remember her saying anything to me, but I trusted and followed her out of the burning room. I turned around once to go back for a shoe that had come off when I was trying to escape, but she motioned for me to keep coming through the bathroom entryway, and I followed. As Johnson continues to attend Cookeville Elementary after the Cookeville miracle, she researched for the teacher who had helped her that day. Years later, when Johnson was about 12 years old, she finally learned the identity of the mysterious woman. While looking through a family album with her grandmother, Johnson stopped at a familiar face. I asked what grade this particular woman had taught and why she quit teaching after the bombing. My grandmother Toomer looked at the picture of her aunt Ruth, whom I was referring to, and said she had never been a teacher and that she knew of and that she had known of, and that she was not from Cookeville. I explained that she was the teacher who led me out when the bomb went off. With tears in her eyes, Grandma explained to me that there was no way that she could have been there because she had died earlier in the 80s, so it was 4 or 5 years before that. I continued to tearfully testify that she was there and she saved me. There's a few more. Not everyone who was at the school that day saw angels or ancestors, but even they have no doubt had miracles occur. In quotes, I have never doubted for a second that they saw exactly what they had claimed to have seen or heard, Wixom says. The way these witnesses all came out, each very independent of each other, is proof enough. Kroger continues. I don't remember seeing any angels, but I definitely felt guided, she says. I knew exactly what to do and where to go. I couldn't have done that on my own. I believe what everyone else says. There's one more I want to get to. Williams, who was severely burned in the explosion, did not see angels that day either. But her experience is a different kind of miracle after being rushed to the hospital. My hair and eyelashes, this in quotes, were gone. My face was completely unrecognizable, she recalls. All the nurses cried as they cleaned my wounds, she says, and the doctor was talking to my parents about skin grafts and plastic surgery. Soon more victims began to arrive, and Williams learned that there was 2 priesthood holders who offered blessings, so she asked for one. I remember that same feeling I felt in the classroom when I prayed, she recalls. I felt a deep peace. I experienced an incredible feeling of being known and loved. I was told my scars would completely heal, and no one would look upon my face and know what had happened. Instead, the scars I would have to heal from would be those of forgiveness and trust. William's skin began to heal at a rapid rate, and despite the severe burns, it was 3rd degree. No scars ever formed. Over time, her skin healed completely, and today she carries no scars from the event of that day. All right. I wanted to share this to you because I have done a lot of dark stuff. Every once in a while, I do good stuff, and this is true. There's all kinds of witnesses, the little kids, the way they testify of people that they never met, the bomb experts, everything that went on. As dark as things get, just realize that there are also wonderful forces and wonderful things happening all around us. So take that as a little bit of a smile from me to you this week. And there you have it. One more thing, too. If you want to see the story instead of hearing me stumble through it, again, to repeat for those who came late, look up, it's free on YouTube, the Cookeville miracle. I had known nothing about it. My son said, "Yeah, let's watch it. Someone told me it's cool." And we watched it the other day, and that made me want to share it with you guys. So there you go.
All right. Thank you, Adega. So Adega brings some brightness, and I'm going to bring some darkness tonight.
Of course, you're Loki.
This isn't that long of a story, and I believe I've read it before a long time ago, but it's called My Wives Don't Get Along. Have you ever wanted to love someone but couldn't? That's how I felt about Tammy. We never should have gotten together in the first place, but it was her birthday. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. She invited all 5 of us from the office, and I was expecting to just have a drink and go home. Fast forward to the bar. Half an hour passed when we were all supposed to meet up, and every time her phone buzzed, I knew it was another person canceling at the last minute. But she was glowing with warmth that wasn't dampened by her disappointment. And I had nowhere else to be, and hours can melt together so fast when you found someone to be lonely with. Tammy blamed herself for how the party turned out in a vicious, self-deprecating way that left me scampering to reassure her. And the harder she was on herself, the kinder I was to her. Until somehow, without meaning to, I called her beautiful because I couldn't bear her thinking otherwise for another second. The way her face lit up in response was proof that I wasn't lying. And the way she smiled back made me feel like it was the first time she'd ever really believed those words. Tammy stayed close to me as we were leaving together, close enough to feel her breath on my neck, her arms wrapped around mine, and her warmth wasn't just something to be imagined anymore. Just to keep her balance, she said. But no amount of studying herself was enough for her to let go. She'd been drinking after all and needed someone to drive her home. Well, I think she really was beautiful that night. And the more of her she trusted me to see, the more beautiful she became. But love, it wasn't her fault that she came to love me. And it wasn't my fault that I couldn't feel the same. A starving man doesn't care what he eats, though. And the lonely will cling to anyone who makes them forget what it's like to be lonely. Tammy and I stayed together, and the phrase, maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like, kept popping up in my head. Tammy treated me with devotion and smothered me with kindness. And the longer we stayed together, the harder it became to imagine my life being any other way. Tammy would do anything to keep me. She reminded me of that every day. I can think of no better way to thank her than with what I had to give her. She was nothing but joy on the day I asked her to marry me. And basking in that light, I told myself that her happiness would be enough for the both of us for all my years ahead. Then there was my other wife, the one with the shaved head, the one with the nose rings and the leather jacket and the tattoo of a snake twisting from one thigh to the next. I don't know if you could call Zara beautiful, certainly not in the same way you could Tammy. You could call her other names, and they all turned her on. I met Zara in another town where my company headquarters was. I had to go once a month, every month, but it didn't take long before I found an excuse to go every weekend instead. Tammy was pregnant, and I wasn't proud about what I was doing, but neither was I ashamed because any guilt I should have felt was a drop in the ocean that was love. Zara was everything I'd never known I'd wanted. She was wild, unrestrained, insatiable. She was a witch who put me under her spell, a demon who had claimed my soul. These are the types of excuses I'd tell myself whenever the guilt began to crawl up my spine. When I'd hold Tammy at night, I'd tell myself stories of all the mad things men have ever done for love. I put myself in their noble company, and when I fell asleep, I'd dream of being back with the girl whose touch was fire. The weekend was never enough to spend with her. And every time was harder to leave than the last. I couldn't leave Tammy with the child, though. And the anxious worry that this had to end began eating away at me day and night. I kept them both a secret from each other, swinging back and forth, barely trusting myself to call one by name without my tongue betraying me to the other. The more the pressure grew, the more insecure and defensive I became, till one day, by surprise, Zara told me she was jealous of my time. She didn't want me to leave again. She wanted to be my wife. And fool that I was, I told her that I wanted the same. It wasn't a very official wedding. Zara wasn't into that sort of thing. Our hands were clasped in the forest and our feet were in the stream when I placed a ring upon her finger. My life as I knew it had ended forever. And I couldn't imagine anything but happiness to come. I told myself then that I would make one last trip to end things with Tammy. She'd be better off alone. I wanted to believe that than with someone who didn't need her anymore. I would do my part, help pay for the kid. I wouldn't need much money because nothing I could buy would fill my heart with the way holding Zara did. Tammy would cry, but I wouldn't break. And in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, when I'm old and gray with shaking hands, I'll hold Zara all the tighter knowing that I was almost too weak to follow my heart. And maybe that's how it would have gone if Zara hadn't followed me back. She thought she would surprise me by making the trip to help me move. She thought she was being clever by calling my work and pretending to be a client, setting up a meeting at my house. How could she have known that Tammy was home? Well, I'd gone to the store to pick up some things for our newborn child. The police were home before I was. The weeping young mother and the screaming punk. It wasn't hard for them to figure out what happened. The knife-slashed curtains, the shattered plates. There must have been one hell of a fight to be loud enough for the neighbors to call the cops. The blood-stained carpet, the dirty tracks into the nursery. There was no way to hide the evidence or mistake what had happened to my daughter, who was slashed into ribbons before she'd ever learned her own name. Zara and I never spoke again, not even at her trial where I was called as a witness. I couldn't even meet her eyes when I told the jury about the affair, that I'd loved her more than anything, and that I knew what I'd done was wrong. I told them that Zara had been jealous, that she'd killed my child, that I never wanted to see her again. The only thing that could have been harder to bear was when Tammy forgave me. She said it wasn't my fault, that I'd made a mistake, that we could learn to be happy again. And I believed her, because as heavy as this weight was for me to bear, I knew I couldn't bear it alone. That was almost 20 years ago. And Tammy and I had moved past it the best we could. We had 2 more children, both boys. And I'm glad of that because if we'd had a girl, I don't think I could have looked at her without thinking about the child who had been killed. If Tammy can still love me after all that, then who am I to say that I can't love her in return? Despite everything I'd done to avoid being alone, I know that it's only a matter of time. You see, Tammy is sick. She isn't going to get any better. I've been spending every day at my wife's side. Our youngest will be leaving to college in a few weeks. And it's just going to be me and my regrets. Thinking about the words Tammy said to me last night. I told you I'd do anything to keep you. And I did, she told me. If you didn't think Sarah killed our daughter, you never would have stayed with me. I had to do it. We've made each other so happy through the years. I had to kill her. I always knew I never loved her, but it's taken me my entire life to find out why. I
remember that one.
That was written by Tobias Wade, and it is called My Wives Don't Get Along.
That almost sounds like it could be true.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way crazy world is, but all right, there you go. You can be left with that depressing note after I tried to uplift everything. It's all Loki's fault.
It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's always all my fault. And that is true evil, Chris Persia. Damn. Yes. That is evil. That is wicked. That is wrong on so many levels. # blame Loki. It's all my fault. Bringing balance to the known universe. Yes.
Of course it is.
Did you see Christopher Walken as the Emperor? Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
I know why they cast him now.
I'm all in, my friend.
Yep.
I can't wait. Guys, we're getting out of here.
One more thing before you go. I just wanted the background that you have. You had made mention of this, and I didn't tell Chris about it. I like what you did with the image. Only thing is if you could get a different pair of glasses. Those are a little too sparkly for me. But other than that, it's a cool picture.
You are talking about, hold on 1 second. Where is it? I know I've got it as my background, but I got to set it as where are you? Little bastard. Where are you at? I've got the thing. There it is. Okay. You're talking about this one.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Just fix the glasses. Looks pretty good. I even look thinner than like I used to be a few years ago. So very cool.
Thank you all so very much. We're going to be back tomorrow morning with the Rooster and the Lady for 7 Kinds of Mischief, or not 7 Kinds of Mischief. Oh my God! For the weekend review, I'm just a tad tired, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. The weekend review. We will be back first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. I can't wait to see you guys then. Thank you, Adega, for doing this, brother. As always,
always fun.
Guys, take care. Be excellent to each other. Always speak, friend, to enter. I'm going to put that on a mat and have it in front of my office. Take care, everybody.
Nice. Good night.
Luis, I see you. You've been quiet this whole time. I see you. I see you. Good night. Have a great one, guys.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.